Okay.
Just a reminder that God put the tree there.
Right.
And then said, don't
Yeah.
eat from it. And then let basically the snake come in and he's all knowing. So he knew this was going to happen. He just let it happen. So I'm kind of blaming God with this. It's kind of God's fault.
Well, let me just go a little further on that because he just got done with creation, right?
Mhm.
The plants, it's all good. The stars and the lights in the sky, that's good. The water is dividing from the land, and that's good. And the animals, and that's good. Well, then where did this cunning serpent come from if all the animals were good?
Got you there. Logic. Like,
Darn it when those facts get in the way.
I know, it's so terrible.
Well, it says here that the serpent was more subtle than any other wild creature that the Lord God had made.
Hmm.
Subtle.
Well, right, and in some variations or versions of the Bible, it says cunning. But either way, whether he's subtle, whether he's cunning, he's speaking. And God made that serpent, unless you're going to take the New Testament narrative, which it only is found in the New Testament that the serpent is Satan. But if that's the case, then there's also another problem because there was a curse attached to the serpent to crawl on his belly. So did a serpent tempt Jesus in the wilderness? And if you're going to say, oh, but he can shapeshift, he can take other forms, well, then the curse had no effect at all.
Yeah. And also, I don't know why they chose the serpent in particular to speak, since it's the only animal that doesn't have vocal cords.
I mean, it's that much more mystical and magical.
Yeah,
But
and I don't see how feminism as a system of thought and a system of tenets, I don't see how it is telling women to eat the fruit of the forbidden tree.
Yeah, does that
It's
something that already happened? So
yeah, the forbidden tree was the tree of knowledge.
in other ancient cultures and religions, wisdom was anthropomorphized in the form of a snake. I mean, so just to pull from that, and many scholars believe that the Bible is an amalgamation of other older religions, and it just makes sense for them to slide a serpent in there when there's a forbidding of knowledge, which is weird because if we're supposed to be perfect as God is perfect, and He has the knowledge of good and evil, because when Adam and Eve ate of it, He says, "Oh, they're just like us." Well, if we're supposed to be like God, but knowledge was forbidden, I mean, there's two contrary narratives there.
yeah, and now they're saying that this only will bring misery, destruction, death. Like it's not like we already have that.
So now we're responsible for destruction and death?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Well, just keep moving the goalpost. What's next?
Yeah. And first it was just that we are to blame for the pain that some of us experience when giving birth. Now we are also you know responsible of the destruction and to the entire humanity.
Right.
Well, I mean, like, as Deborah pointed out, in ancient religions, like for the goddess Sophia in Greek and Hellenistic traditions, and in Buddhism, the personification for wisdom is a woman. So, and if you want to vilify, half the population, have the first woman to do something bad and take the wisdom away from her, it's a punishment. And then we can blame him. Then they can blame the other half for all the bad things that ever happened to us. Very
Well, that's
convenient.
interesting that you say that, because in the New Testament, when there's a command to women to be sober of mind, that has nothing to do with alcohol. If you look into the Greek definition of that word that was used in this verses, sober doesn't mean alcohol. It means that you would intentionally limit your ability to pursue knowledge and freedom.
It's gross.
Yeah.
It's so gross. It's always gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
That's my mantra right now. It's gross.
I see all the time. I'm like, that's gross. Yep, I'm nauseated. Fuck this article and fuck that guy.
Let's continue with just this one paragraph. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, what doesn't come through in this article anywhere is that the person who wrote it has any notion as to what feminism is. It's almost like he's he grasped the concept that feminism seeks to overthrow patriarchal notions of obedience and all of that sort of stuff, and the commandment to the double phrase, you'll long for your husband and yet you'll be subservient to him. In that biblical, that's the key, and he focuses in on that without examining anything else. And it's very strange. And it's basically, well, you're not obeying God because you're not being obedient,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's one of the points that they're trying to do. Welcome to Look at the Trees in Armchair. Okay, and let's go to the next paragraph of this lovely article. God designed the family with the specific roles which have allowed to develop the development of our society. But the devil in our days tells women to rebel. And with this, I am not saying that it's wrong for a woman to get ahead professionally at work or any question of success. But we have to understand that just like a man, each role has priorities. And if the roles established by God are not respected, we do not expect something good to come from here. Wow.
Okay.
I don't hate women. I want them to be empowered, but they should, be brood mares and pop out babies.
Yeah, and obey your husbands.
Obey. Oh, definitely, Steph. You gotta do that.
So I think it's funny that they're talking about specific roles. First, let me just say that cleaning and cooking are not gender specific. Those are called life skills. We should look at everything that we do, and if we're going to, like the Bible talks about, if we're going to use the gifts that we're given, right? We're born with special talents, or we develop special talents, and if we're going to use that model, then we should also look at the roles in the family. Some women are better at managing money. Some women are better at being the breadwinner, if you will. Some men like to be more domestic, if you will. But let's not assign a specific gender to these roles. Now, we understand biologically there are limitations to what we can do. Nobody is arguing that. What we are saying is, why should we be stuck and confined to the perimeters of our home in that respect, in that mindset. Why put a ceiling or a cap on what we're able to do? And why limit men to not having the accountability to take responsibility for their emotional trauma? We carry so much of that all the time in our relationships. Women are more compassionate, they carry the emotional load. Why should that be the case, that we're responsible for, obviously, for death and destruction, but also for the mitigation and regulation of all the emotions around us? Like, if you're going to have a tantrum, that's not on me to fix it. I'm not your court jester. And putting and assigning
Mm-hmm.
roles to women, as the Bible does, is toxic. Full stop.
I
Yeah,
have no
and
argument.
the sign of God, I am still have doubts about it, because if we go to the Old Testament, the sign of the family was a man, a woman, her sister, the maid of the other sister, and the slaves and everybody that he can get. So it's not like they have like a specific design, like, oh, no, or just like they say, one man and one woman is not that at all.
No. And they'll often point to nature, right? Well, nature shows us that the female lions raise the pride, and the male lions go off. But in a unit, you will usually find two female lions raising their cubs together, as though they were paired. Uh, Penguins do the same thing. They have found male penguins raising, two male penguins raising the chicks to adulthood. You can't look at nature and say it has just this one specific design, and that's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. Oh, and look at the seahorses.
Right.
Hmm.
Look at that.
Well, like I have friends like my one of my friends makes very very good money, so her husband stays home and raises their daughter. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but to this guy it would
and
be,
Mexico,
you know.
yeah, yeah, in Latin America and especially in Mexico, they have like even a derogatory term for a guy who helps his wife uh, for with anything at the house, or he listens to her at any point. He's is we is called mandilon. That is like an apron dude, which means that she is the one like controlling him, and he has no say in it. It's just a way to
There are
shame a guy just because he was helping his wife, or because he was changing diapers or cooking or
Mhm.
anything
Yeah.
that he was. Mhm. There's nothing
there
like
are several derogatory terms in the English language that describe that situation as well. Some of them less polite than others.
Yeah. My ex's father was born in one of the Caribbean islands, and uh, he was yelled at by his sister for peeling his own hard-boiled eggs.
What?
Her internalized misogyny. Yeah, she was yelling at him for that. I'm like, wow.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
yeah.
Oh boy.
I remember to go to friends' houses when I was middle school, and the mom will say, "Come on, hurry up! What are you doing? You have to serve your brother his lunch. What do you think you're doing? Why are you just sitting around?" The brother was sitting around waiting playing whatever, and my friends were the girls were the one who has to hurry up and prepare the table and serve and everything, because they were men, and they were not supposed to do that.
Well, yeah, look at who runs the potlucks for the most part at churches. You know, it's the women
Hmm.
that set up. It's the women that cook and clean and serve, and meanwhile watch all the kids at the same time. And the men just sit back and talk about sports, and
Yeah,
maybe they'll move a few chairs here and there, but that's it.
yeah. The ladies auxiliary is the term that was used in the 50s and 60s. The women's auxiliary, the ladies something or other. I mean, it just yeah.
I
But
mean, like,
anyway, I think that this guy would be perfectly happy for a woman to do all of these things, go earn the money, etc., and so forth. You take care of this stuff, as long as the man told her to.
Well, let's not forget that it is a man who wrote
uh,
this article.
Yeah, well,
yes.
no, really, I'm shocked.
I know,
I'm
right?
well,
shocked.
when me and my husband were at lunch today, and I said, "This is what we're reviewing," and he's reading through the article, and he goes, "I wonder if a woman wrote this," and I go, "No, it's a man," and he goes, "Well, there's women that support misogyny," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." Internalized
Yeah.
misogyny gets you.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, before we continue, I wanted also to thank our patrons. And I want to say thank you, patrons, to Sydney Davis Jr., Eric Ossells, Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dandy, Michael Weisman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Colson, Phil Calderon, and Jamie West. Also, to say thank you to Pragmatic Crystal and Betsaida and AR, who are in the chat supporting us. Thank you so much. And well, let's continue with this train wreck of an article.
Super fun.
Yes, it sounds fun. Well, women are being prey to
Oh,
globalism.
you skipped a
I didn't know
paragraph.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, yeah, this one.
Like it's terrible, Deborah. She wants to get it over with.
I wanted
I know.
to. Sorry. I, yeah, you called me Deborah. Damn, I can never get away with anything. Okay. Um, the violence that we are experiencing today, murder men and women, have been a political tool to fan the fire of gender ideology. To say all men are worse, to divide men and women and start a war where there wasn't. Oh, there wasn't. But the end is not equality. It should be noted that men and women must be equal before the law. But here, what is sought is control, political and economic.
Uh,
Wow.
Huh?
that was a whole lot of
Yeah.
wow. Um, First of all, violence is, of course, you're going to have shock factor, and news organizations want to report on what's going on, and it's important to show what's going on in the world, because if there's a specific threat in your specific area, you're going to want to know about it. But to add that to this article seems quite out of place. But he tries to tie it back in by saying the end is not equality. Um, Here is what is sought as control. Okay, wait a minute. The Bible is literally showing how to control women, and here he's saying feminism is the tactic to utilize control politically and economically. No, what feminism is trying to free women from control. It's
Mhm.
completely backwards. And I find it really, really ironic when the scriptures state that in the end times, good would be called evil and evil would be called good. And here is a perfect example of that.
And also,
Yeah.
like part of that is also, um, it's kind of a twisted ideology because he thinks women will do to men what men do to women.
Oh.
Which is if that's what he's saying, because for millennia, for a very, 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 very long time, men have had all the power, and now that we're saying like, hey, we want to sit at the table, we don't want to be treated any differently, physical, characteristics aside, we're still all people and everybody deserves a seat at the table. And he's saying, nope, women want to be men and behave like men and take power away from us so they could be powerful.
Yeah, they want to blow out our candle so that theirs burns brighter, and that's not
Right.
really how it works. You can light somebody else's candle without diminishing your own. They
Yeah.
don't seem to understand that concept. But women are not going to be colonized without the understanding that we have value. You don't colonize something that doesn't have value, and they're trying to do that with women.
Mm. Hmm. Perhaps equal medical care will be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be.
Also, that blank statement that it says all men are, but nobody has said that. I never heard
No,
Nobody.
anyone on the feminist
no.
movement saying that every man is this.
No, they're
No.
straw manning the
Of course not.
argument it's hyperbole, but they're straw manning. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's precisely the opposite what feminism seeks to do. I mean, he is positing these stereotypes about all men this, all women this, women should be cared for as God intended, and all of this other stuff. Those are the stereotypes, and feminism seeks to break those down, so that all people can fulfill their own potential, regardless of their sex or gender or whatever. And it's again, you said it exactly right. It is a straw man. It's and the most telling point there is gender ideology. It's like, what gender ideology are you talking about? This is what we're actually trying to break down. That there aren't these hard and fast determinative things that a man must do, a woman must do, and never the twain shall meet. Yeah.
And also, I just wanted to add that I did a panel a couple weeks ago on Discord about feminism and also its effect on men. But one of the things that I find a little bit frustrated when we have to say, if we're talking about like abuse, sexual or otherwise, and we mention men, we always have to say, but not all men. Because there's that natural defense that you're going to be attacked by a man just because you're talking about, how
That
people have behaved. And it's frustrating because that goes without saying. But you have to.
okay.
Because then you turn into
Exactly.
this guy.
Yeah, what I've been saying when somebody says that to me, it says, "Oh, you're saying all men," and I will say, "I know that it's not all men. I just don't know which one."
Right.
Right. How would we know? How would we know?
Yeah.
Men
So,
get mad when they are seen or devalued, as they put it, to be nothing more than a paycheck, right? But they're the ones that
mhm,
want to be the checkbook. They want to be the breadwinner. They want the women to stay home. I'm talking colloquially about these very
gender roles.
traditional mindset men.
Mhm.
but they'll always turn it around and say, well, why are you treating me that way? Well, that's how you wanted to be seen. That's how you wanted to be
Mm,
valued, was how much you could bring home. And so you can't get mad when that's what you wanted and then you're treated that way. And,
right.
but it's this is part of the problem. You have a man who wrote this article talking about a subject he doesn't know anything about, and would he ever listen to women like us who are trying to tell them what the disparity is and why it's not a problem for women to be stepping out into their own power? No, they wouldn't.
And he does put those caveats in there, like, they should be able to do well professionally and be equal in for the law, but God's law,
Yeah.
not laws we understand it.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, so I know what he's doing. I
But
see through his bullshit.
yeah, God's law does not show women as equal. They're not allowed to hold positions within the Levitical priesthood, for instance. They could be a judge like Deborah was, but that, I digress. You have the Proverbs 31 woman, right? I pointed that out to Lori Alexander and got blocked immediately.
No.
But what we don't see in reading that, and I used to read that every single week when I was Torah observant, read that chapter every single week, and I missed it over and over and over for 6 years. After deconverting, I went back and read it again and realized this Proverb 31 woman didn't do all of that by herself. She had handmaids. She had female slaves. Let's just call it like it is. She didn't do all that by herself.
Oh, yeah, I just remember something that I was reading. I was looking for other articles to see how feminism has changed, women like owning property and stuff. And I don't know if this is factually correct, but I heard I read one article that it says that in the US, women were not allowed to have bank accounts for a long
Until
time.
1979,
19,
I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say late 70s,
I,
which is mind-boggling when I learned that.
yeah.
That my mom couldn't have a credit card until like the late 70s. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
without a cosigner, without a male cosigner.
Right.
Yeah, she was pushing 40. So,
Yeah.
it's just so. No, she was 45 and 77. So, yeah. So it's just wild to me. My mom was my age when she got a credit card. That is so.
Yeah.
Now, based on stupid things like we're irrational and obviously we can't handle money because we can't do the math because we're dum-dums being a woman, according to them.
Well, when we're talking about political and economic control, let's not forget that many of the right-wing elected officials are now going after no-fault divorce.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's
Thank
one
you,
of the
Stephen
points
Crowder.
yeah, Steven Crowder was so mad about that because I think he's getting divorced. I don't understand why. It seems so nice.
Oh
Oh,
yeah, I was so shocked that he talked to his wife that way.
Yeah.
So shocked, clutching pearls and everything.
His pregnant with twins wife. Honey, can I take the car? No. I might need it. Sure.
why do you not have two cars? I mean,
Yeah.
He has millions of dollars. Let her have a car.
right.
I don't understand.
Yeah, this is not the 1700s, let the woman have a car.
Yeah.
Just the frustration.
Well, the frustration in there. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep reading that on. Just want to say hi to the chat, to the new ones joining. I'm in Faron Salas. Thank you so much. And oh, yeah,
Mhm.
the no fault divorce scares the shit out of the insecure people. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me you have
Okay.
no game
Now
without telling
let's
me you have no
see.
game.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I remember regarding that. I don't know if you guys have seen this woman, Pearly Things or something like that. Is where she is saying that women just get a divorce for fun, for funsies. After they get a
Oh,
degree and the university or something, they just like, oh yeah, this is fun. Let's get divorced.
I, okay. Um, okay. Yeah. That's why I got the divorce. I wanted to. That was the fun I was looking for.
Yeah, it seems
Wow.
so fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I wasn't traumatizing or upsetting and caused a lot of ruckus in my life that I didn't want.
Yeah.
Um, to me, that just screams, I can't take personal responsibility for what I may
Mhm.
have contributed to the failure of this marriage. So I'm just going to say it was just a long game for her.
Yeah, she just decided out of the blue, without any warning, just let's get a divorce. And that was it.
I mean, imagine wanting being with someone just
No.
because you want to be with them because they're a good person and kind to you. You know, not because you have money
That's a
or
wild
any,
concept.
yeah.
Right.
It just it's just so like and like this is the thing that really bothers me because we all know feminism is for everybody, not just as people that
Mhm.
identify as a woman, but like everyone, because then everybody talks about their challenges, their issues, and band together to make things better. And for some reason, especially this is how religion fucks up your brain, because then you start leaning into the ideas like, well, because I have a penis, I am better. And then we get like, the umbrella protection and everything has to be dominated. People don't see their children as being intelligent little humans that have feelings and needs and wants they should be allowed to voice. And if a woman's being repressed by her husband, she learns that behavior and then she hands it off to her children.
Yeah.
And it rolls and rolls and
Yeah.
rolls, and then we're spending all of our adulthood trying to look back on that and work through the trauma and get over it, or learn to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Women are being prey to globalism, which seeks to exterminate the human race, subdue and bring to the feet of the Antichrist by ending liberties that nations that embrace the Protestant Reformation have created, bringing to equality based on biblical principles where the woman is cared for, supported, and valued because this is what God wants. Wow, we want to end the human race. That is
Right.
news.
Well, how do I destroy the human race but also subdue it at the exact same time? Doesn't the extermination just get rid of all that? Makes no
Well,
fucking sense. This makes no sense.
first you have to prove that globalism is trying to exterminate the human race, because that sounds like it's just a wild, unsubstantiated claim right there. And that globalism is going to bring the world to the feet of the Antichrist. Well, if you're exterminating the human race, then you have nothing to bring to the feet of the Antichrist. So that's weird. Um, but ending liberties that nations have embraced, that,
Like,
well, now you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. Do you want liberties for women, or do you want to control them? Because you can't have both. That's really weird. Um, and then the Bible doesn't talk about women as being valued. If a woman has a male son, she's unclean for 40 days. If she has a female child, she's unclean for 80 days. That there's a disparity there. Just because of what is between the legs of the child that is born a woman is seen as unclean for one, but unclean for a completely separate amount of time in that respect. When men are suspected of having adulterous relationships, men are not given the bitter waters to see and to test whether they have committed adultery. No, it's just the women. There's a huge disparity going on in does the Bible tell men anywhere that they are to obey their wives? No, that doesn't happen. Are they told to be silent in churches and only ask their wives questions at home? That doesn't happen either. There's this huge the claim. This is word salad. That whole last paragraph was completely untrue. There's no basis on which to found any of those sentences.
Yeah, I think that the person who wrote this is trying to, oh, please don't get mad at me. And and at the same time, I'm going to tell you that you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And
There's
mhm.
there's also a fair little dollop of what what of coded language here.
Mhm.
Women are being prey to globalism. I don't know. Were you talking the Rothschilds, the Soros? You get the picture. There's a little bit of a
It might be reptilians. We have to protect the women.
yeah.
From
It could
I
could
mean,
be the
those are
reptilians.
yeah.
Bring it to the feet of the Antichrist. It's just gewalt, and plus there's the this dichotomy between woman the nurturer, woman the bringer of life, and all of this, almost like if women did take control of their reproductive status, that is the end of God's will, domination, etc., and so forth. That it's a whole cluster of stuff going on in this guy's mind that is actually quite frightening.
Oh, it is. It is. True equality based on biblical precepts. You just pulled that out of your butt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he's trying to wrap his misogyny and need for control in well, under, according to him, under the Bible, we're equal to men, but separate but equal, kind of bullshit, and that's what he's saying. He does, and I'm like, well, what does the ideal look like for you, man? Do you want women to have jobs and go into their professions and make money, or do you want them to stay home and raise kids, or do you think they should have a choice? Do you want that? Because I would love to ask him what kind of fucking future you want, man, because you're saying two different things. They cannot coexist.
The dog whistle wording that was used in this whole article, it reeks of female bigotry. It's not just like, oh, we have to care for them, so let's take away their liberties. It sounds even deeper than that, and it is quite frightening.
Yeah, and that part where it says that the woman is cared and supported and valued. Um, well, it is just like, oh, we support you by you being in the kitchen. That's how you're valued because you have to love cooking, or you have to love cleaning after your everybody in the house, because that's what your value is.
Well,
I don't.
even you talk about that. There's that verse, that specific verse in the Bible talks about the young widows. There's another passage around it that talks about the young widows, and it says that the young widows should get married and get married quickly, for they may have already turned to Satan. And I think that's where he's getting this whole idea of the Antichrist.
Yeah.
It's I don't have enough adjectives.
And then we have child marriage, because it's,
Yeah.
soon as you get your menstrual period, got to marry you off.
Yeah,
Well,
before
So
you turn
otherwise
evil.
Satan's gonna get you. Satan's gonna get you.
there's you guys know there's an Old Testament mitzvah law that says that if that a man should not even go near a menstruating woman.
Oh yeah, I
Hmm.
remember that when I read Leviticus with the guys in Nuestra Experiencia there, the women have to leave the camp
Mhm.
for all the time that she has her period, and now to go back until she's clean again. Uh, like,
That's what you.
You
That's
hear
what you
that,
have your
Crowder?
mikvah for, you know.
Do you hear that, Crowder? You need to get your wife a car because when she's menstruating, she needs to be able to leave.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
I gotta tell my husband then he's gotta build me a mini house in the backyard, because and he has to build it because he's the man.
Right.
And I'm gonna
My
go live in
shed
it for a
better
week.
be awesome.
Yeah.
There are still mikvahs in Orthodox synagogues
Yeah.
for ritual purity, and all.
And like,
Yeah,
this is the
like
thing,
somebody
like,
in the
who
chat is saying
cursed
there are still
women?
places where.
Like, who cursed women with periods and having to bear children? Oh, guess what? God did it again.
Well, wait a minute. Per James chapter 3, I thought that blessings and cursings ought not come from the same mouth.
Oh.
Maybe it's a little contradictory. Maybe it doesn't make any fucking sense. So
I mean,
silly.
I would expect, the most important message from an omni God, I would expect to hear an omni-coherent message. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Yeah, because in Isaiah it also says that he's the one who creates good and evil. So
Isaiah 45:7. Yep.
yeah.
Oh
So
dear. Oh dear.
so we see now a little bit of conspiracy theories in here,
Hmm.
and well, let's see what is the problem that this guy is going to solve the problem now.
Okay.
Perhaps the problem, after all, is not that women are trying to solve the problems, but the men are not doing anything, and we're letting women to listen to the voice of the enemy.
Oh, okay. You
Okay.
do it all for me. Do it all for me.
Sorry,
Except the cooking and cleaning, except the taxi, except the uh, all the things that the sex that you need at night. Except all of that, you go ahead and listen for me now.
Oh Jesus. It's like, no, I just.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, this dude,
yeah,
my
like Kat
dude.
said, the article sounds like a guy worried about losing his sex baby making homemade slave. Yeah, yep, it sounds exactly
Pretty
like that.
much, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They have
And
reduced women to being a domestic slave, and women don't get paid for it. Men who are married are now statistically proven. Men who are married make more money
mhm.
because they have a good support system at home to set them up for success. But women aren't seeing that in kind, and so now they're talking to each other and they're finding great ways to realize that it's not their picker that was wrong. It's most men that don't value women, and I think that's
Oh
one
yeah.
of the reasons why we now have a threat to take away our free speech via the Restrict Act. Men are mad that women are talking to each other. Men are mad that women are fighting back against this kind of misogyny being litigated against half of the population. And yeah, the cat was on point there.
Exactly. And also this expression that I've heard so many times that my wife doesn't work. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, your house cleans itself. Do you have Somebody that cooks for you? How does it doesn't work?
Right. Yeah, they imagine that we just sit at home and watch, the Housewives of Georgia and
Hmm.
soap operas, and we just get up right before he comes home and just wave our magic wand, get things straightened up, and start dinner before he gets home. That's like what they think, that there isn't from sun up to sundown something to do.
Like
If you have a house full of kids and then you're making lunches in the morning and you're getting them bathed and clean and their clothes being washed, and it doesn't just magically happen. There isn't a laundry fairy. There isn't a lunch leprechaun. That just doesn't exist.
I like my dad got that lesson, but it took a long time. It took it into my dad's 80s, and then my mom got she got old enough and she had heart problems that she can't really move around. And so my dad was picking up a lot of the slack, and went to go visit him, and he was like, taking care of a house is a lot of work. I'm like, is it, Dad? Is it? He learned it, I was like, no kidding. Like, I'm like, I love my father, I do, and my parents, but my parents had that traditional 1950s, 1960s marriage. He loves my mom to death, but those gender roles were taught to them, and
We
like me and my brothers don't
romanticize.
follow any of that, but my dad didn't learn until he was in his 80s, and I'm like, well, at least you learned how hard
Yeah,
it is.
Leave It to Beaver romanticized that domestic
Oh
housewife
yeah.
persona,
Yeah.
and it was
Hmm.
it
Good
was
old
actually pretty good.
June.
I know, good old Dune.
And also like the impossible standards that those kind of shows set up, where there is a wife that looks perfect all the time, has perfect makeup, hair, and works in high heels and kind of dress all the time, and has dinner ready on time. Like,
Yeah,
it's wow.
it just tells me that a lot more men have a maid kink than we realize.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and like you were mentioned before, you guys were mentioning before, like they say, oh, we should be like the providers and everything, but I also have seen on those podcasts where they're like alpha sigma male, saying that, oh, don't get a gold digger. Like, then what?
Again, what do you want, man? Like, do you want your woman to go make her own money, or do you want her to stay at home? Because if she's staying at home, you're going to have to provide that. So you guys are, and kind of push yourself and make more money, because you're going to be supporting financially your wife and the kids. And if you don't help out, she might get resentful and want to leave your ass because you treat her like a slave, not as a person. So, what do you want? Pick your lane. Pick a lane.
Right, right.
Yes, pick something and stick to it.
Like, if you want to be a misogynist asshole, be a misogynistic asshole. Or if you want equality, which was very which will benefit everybody, do that. But pick a lane. I don't like this double speak shit, drives me nuts.
Right.
Yeah, and also the line that it kind of infuriated me a little bit was like, we are letting women, they're letting women, they are allowing us to listen to the voice of the enemy. Like, what? Like,
And then if you're
we are
like,
not even allowed to listen.
And what enemy? I mean, the enemy of
Of,
what enemy? I don't get it. It's like I feel like he's setting women of independent thought. He's constructed this bugbear of feminism in his mind that he just doesn't understand, and he doesn't understand the natural desire of any human to be a fully self-realized individual. It's just so weird.
and for them, like, if you're gender nonconforming, they don't know what to do with that. Like, well, you were born a certain
That too.
way. You were born in a certain way, so that's your role. Like your sex defines the role you're supposed to have, and if that doesn't do it, what will? And that's why they panic. That's why they're freaking the shit out, because they want to conserve. They want to keep things the same, and we're over here going, nope, it's not working. It sucks. There's too much disparity between defranchised groups. People are not getting equal seats at the table. People are really struggling. And it's because you keep saying it's because we don't have biblical values, when really you're not letting the person come to the table that says, like, this needs to change. That's how we get better.
And you got to be wearing the right uniform.
That's right.
It's like, you've got to be.
Yeah.
It's not just the roles. It's the appearance. It's the policing of proper attire, etc., and so forth. That's biblical, all right.
Well, if
Just
we're going
remember,
to go back,
cloth has a gender. Just remember that your cloth has a gender. I'm
Right.
sorry, Deborah, go ahead.
seriously, Jesus wore robes, so we're
Yeah,
going to
kind
go
of like
back
a
to
skirt.
that. If we're going to go back to that, then the men need to be, garbing up in robes as well. And forget those
Yeah.
pants. Pants weren't allowed back then, so let's go.
Oh, thank you so much, Farron Salas. Thank you, Skeptic. Hey, men and women at Atheist Unload panel. Thank you. And hi, Cindy. Welcome. Okay. It's so weird that, there is pants for, also like, there's not only the pants, also the, what is the name of it? Those long socks. I just forgot the name. Hosieries.
Oh,
Thigh
yeah.
highs?
Nylons.
Nylons. Yes, those.
Oh, yeah.
Those
Lederhosen.
were originally for men, right?
Yeah.
Those were originally made for men. I remember seeing like Renaissance paintings where men were using those tights.
Yeah.
Like I always, like, they're always saying, like, you're feminizing men. I'm like, listen, you just look back, to when this country was first formed, and over, the European fashions and stuff like that. I'm like, that looks pretty, gay to me, and I just laugh because I'm like, it's clothing. We reflect society and our culture through our clothing, and it will change. I guarantee in 100 years, people are going to be wearing very different things than we're wearing now, and because fashion and things change as we progress, and it's okay. But just because someone wants to wear a piece of clothing doesn't mean they're your enemy.
Well, so is our skin. Like, our skin is just a flesh suit.
Yeah.
So really, if you really wanted to show true value and equality to women, if you really wanted to care for them, you would care about their mind, not what their skin looks like, not what their body shape is. You wouldn't care, but they do.
Exactly.
It's too exhausting. I can't keep track anymore.
Well, let's finish this
too much
train wreck. Let's finish with this disaster of an article. Okay. We must be men. Oh, so you were not? Okay. We must be men who take care of our families and who put the masculinity that God gave us at the service of people who need it. The gospel is the only thing that can rescue every man and woman from falling prey to the voice of the serpent. Men, we must go back to the gospel.
Isn't God non-binary?
Mike,
does God have a gender? Like, I think God's non-binary.
Right. So if we're going to go back to the gospel, then we're, let's look at what verse is this? Matthew 15, verses 21 through 28. Jesus called women dogs. So, I mean, if you're going to go back to the gospel, you're not treating, caring, supporting women. You're not. God ignored that woman. yes, I know there are other examples of Jesus who, don't, who is without sin cast the first stone. Okay. But why was it only the woman in the middle? Where was the man in that whole scenario? Did the man get called out? No, just the woman.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. And
when the story of the woman at the well, Jesus calls out her history. Well, name one time in the Gospels where Jesus calls out the history of a man. So it's only women who are responsible for all of the shit. And you want to act like you care via articles like this. You don't. Just say the quiet part out loud and let's move on.
He's an old man yelling at a cloud. Like that's what he's doing, and he's hoping, it's going to penetrate, the zeitgeist, but we've heard all this shit before. You're not reinventing the wheel, man. You're just mad because things are changing and you want them to say, because I'm sure he's from, I'm just saying, just from this article, I don't think he's a very pleasant person to be around. And if he is married and his wife's kind of getting sick of it, he's probably like, well, I got to control her. I'm freaking the fuck out, because we can't have change. That will be bad. Like, well, what happened to the church? Does that, maybe it won't be there anymore. I don't know, but it can't, but we just don't want it to get worse because it's like, we're moving forward. Cannot stop the wheels of progress, man. And when people behave like this and they have to put that stuff out in the world because they can't deal with the existential crisis that they're having. It just, it's so, because that sounds like he's going through an existential crisis.
Yeah.
He needs therapy.
Let's not forget that this is coming from a man who believes that serpents can talk. And additionally, found in the Bible, you have things like teleportation and axe heads that swim and detached hands that write on the palace walls, and the sun and the moon stand still.
Yeah.
This isn't scientific. And, shall I go on? There's a laundry list of sci-fi things that supposedly happen in this trees.
Yeah,
It talks
a
about
man
trees
living inside of
talk.
a fish.
Right. You have trees that supposedly talk. Donkeys that talk.
They're ants. I was going to say the same thing. I'm like, they're ants. Talking trees.
Cockatrices, unicorns, you name it. There's all kinds of things in the Bible that don't make sense if you're trying to take it literally. So stop trying to control women using your fables. Let's start there.
But and then if they flip it around, because people like to cherry pick, and then they'll pick a bunch of things out of the Bible that show that it supports women, really, and then if you bring up any of the other verses that say like, oh no, I'm supposed to be quiet.
I'll tell you what, if you're picking your cherries off a talking cherry tree, you might get in some trouble.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly.
Deity and shrine shrubbery.
You're either taking it out of context, it was a mistranslation, or you don't understand what they meant.
We interpreted this way. I'm like, okay, what's the right interpretation then?
Yeah.
Because nobody knows the mind of God, but exactly what he's saying. Okay.
He's unknowable, but you know him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nobody can know what God is thinking, but let me explain you exactly what he's thinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's got to be, and it's got to be the God of the Reformation too. None of that
the Protestant Reformation, yeah.
None of that Catholic shit, Stephanie.
None of that.
No Catholics.
No Catholics. We don't want no Catholics, and we don't want no globalists.
Right? Yeah, the we're a part of globalism, everybody.
Yeah.
We're the global elite.
Yeah. Pat
Robertson was right.
Soros,
Feminism.
I don't don't know.
Feminists will make you leave your husband, kill your children, practice witchcraft, and practice witchcraft.
Right.
That's how it happens.
I so miss that fella. Jeez,
Oh
the
yeah.
700 quotes. What a shame. It's gone to his great reward, whatever it would be.
He's in heaven with Jerry Falwell, still complaining that about the world.
Mm.
When believers expose their inner hatred for other lifestyles and for non-believers, quite frankly, they use fear to try to draw you back in, and of course they're going to follow the template. In the book of Jude, it talks about, some people you'll reach out to with compassion and some with fear. Okay, so you're following your tenets. But if you're using threats and coercion, which is exactly what John 3:16 is, and if heaven is filled with people like you, I don't want anything to do with it. I will choose the opposite if it exists, but you can't prove that it does.
Exactly.
And that's what this is why, like, when we have these conversations, when we're trying to untangle the mess that religions cause people, is because if you learn, religion is based on fear, and if you're taught that as a young child, you grow up with this hyperactive thing going on in your lizard brain, like, oh, it's different, it's bad, and then any sort of change, any sort of disruption within your inner circle, and expand that out to society, it's terrifying, and that terror turns to hate, and I have to vilify something so I'll feel safe. There has to be an enemy.
Right, but you also have to validate your belief system. So
Yeah.
the strongest opposition, if you can get the strongest opposition to believe like you do, then you feel more validated.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the things that I remember from the Jehovah's Witness, that they will tell you that everything that was outside of what they were telling you was from the devil. Because everything that makes you think different, everything that friends that are not from the religion, if you have acquaintances that are not from the religion, or any thinking that you do outside of what they are telling you, is from the devil, because they are trying to get you out of their way of thinking. So you have to fear that. You have to fear questioning. You have to fear everything that gets you out of the good way of the religion. So
And
yeah.
it seems to me that this whole thing, this article, this tract,
No.
is this fellow operating out of fear, a fear of a loss of a superior position, a loss of the telling phrase is the masculinity that we contribute to others. I mean, it feels to me like a 7-paragraph long clutch at his groin, because he's afraid that he's losing stuff, and and you're not. Buddy, you're not. You're sitting there in a position of if you look at society, it's like how it's it. You're not in an inferior position here in any way, shape, or form, but you're afraid that you are.
Well, see, men have a huge advantage in society, especially if they have a woman, because, like I said before, they're not paid. And not having somebody who's capable of being the nanny, of being the shopper, the personal shopper, of being the housewife, the cleaner, of being the cook, of being the taxi, that is a huge advantage to a man. They have unpaid worker. right there on hand 24/7, and to include sex, right? So the woman is the virtual sexual vending machine for men. Um, if you have that and you feel like it's slipping away, you're going to fight tooth and nail to keep control over it. And like I said before, if women are continuing to talk to each other and build these circles that validate their understanding that, you know, they weren't psychotic, they really did see problematic toxic behaviors coming from somebody who claims to love them. But why should this be a surprise? Because God does the same thing.
Exactly. Exactly. I heard one time. Well, I heard one time that if you think that you can leave your toxic relationship with your husband, then it's going to be easier also to leave your toxic relationship with God. So I guess that's one of the fears they have.
I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
I, I just wanted to say one more thing. I, I think it's really important that because not only are we talking, we're now lifting each other up. We're trying to leave behind, you know, the snotty, jealous bitch culture that was kind of ingrained in us by men.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to
Nasty
compete.
schoolgirls.
Yeah,
Yep.
nasty super. We're nope, you don't. And I'm like, women support other women now, and we support people that are marginalized. So you just have to do that, you know, and that scares them, because if we band together and say, I'm sick of your fucking bullshit, man, and I want, just a little bit of equality, they don't know what to do with that, and we're you know, if it's just yourself, you're not a threat. But if you have an army, there's going to be a fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So I think we have covered all of this article, and it will be a good time for final thoughts. What do you think, Stephanie?
I think I've pretty much delivered everything I have to say about this article. I mean, I think it is really wonderful that that we are seeking to lift each other up, and we are seeking to move things forward in spite of a tremendous amount of pushback. I mean, there's all sorts of challenges on the legal front in the United States these days, in politics and a whole and in our day-to-day lives. It hasn't changed. It has changed for the better over the course of my life, but boy, oh boy, it's still not anywhere near where it ought to be. And every generation needs to be putting in the work and doing and carrying on the fight, because prejudices don't go away, and God knows the patriarchy is fighting tooth and nail, as pieces like this show.
Mm-hmm. Grace?
Yeah, there's not much I can add to that. That was so well stated, and very poignant. Um, we are, I'm so glad to see that we are lifting each other up. Just in the few years that it's been like 5 years now since I've deconstructed, but only a couple years, 2.5 years, maybe three, in these circles. And once I realized, oh my gosh, there is a community out here, um, I've seen a change just in those few years of people, women lifting each other up. And we're supporting each other on such a grand scale now that it would be hard to put the genie back in the bottle. We are fierce. We were taught to be strong. We were taught to be, um, even from the 50s, we were taught to endure in the face of adversity. And from our four women, our foremothers who started this until today, there has been an immense amount of progress that's happened, but we have to be diligent. Stephanie said that, and we do. We have to keep going. We can't be silenced.
That's awesome. Great. Helen?
I echo both what Stephanie and Deborah said, and I'll say what I said at the beginning. Fuck this article and fuck that guy, and I'm done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. Well, to everybody who was watching us and everybody on the chat, we appreciate your being here and appreciate your comments. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the video so we can be shared with more people. And don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven, like Secular Soapbox on Wednesday, Thursdays, The Sunny Spot, Saturday, The Global Atheist, and Women Atheists Unload, and Let's Talk on Sunday. And well, thank you so much for being here, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, 'cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals.